Welcome. I'm Mr. Clock, developer of the Arma 3 Object Builder plugin for Blender. And in this video, I would like to give a brief introduction to the add-on and its capabilities. Before we really get started, I would like to give a few disclaimers. Firstly, while the plugin borrows its name from the Object Builder application that is part of the Arma 3 tools available on Steam, this project has no affiliation whatsoever with Bohemia Interactive and their devs. This is purely a fan project to further improve the dev experience for Arma 3 mainly, and possibly the DayZ game. Secondly, sadly I am not very good at video editing, but since many, or well, shall we say multiple people indicated that a few video introductions would be handy for new users of the add-on. Starting with this video, I will try to create a few tutorial videos showcasing the basic tools available in it. So with that out of the way, let's get started. The home of the add-on is the GitHub repository, which is called Arma 3 Object Builder. As you can see, it is forked from the Arma Toolbox repository by Alvaren. And this is where I will have to give a little bit of credit, since this is where it's due. The Arma 3 Object Builder plugin is mainly based on the Arma Toolbox plugin developed by Alvaren many years ago. This Arma Toolbox plugin has been in use by Arma modders and possibly DayZ modders as well for many years since its creation. As you can see, the repository itself is a bit more than 6 years old, but that's not when the development started. So many people have used this. The issue with this plugin is that as Blender developed, and particularly with the transition from the 2.79b version to the 2.80 and onwards, which was a major rewrite and introduced big changes to the plugin API of Blender, this plugin became quite riddled with issues. Some features don't work anymore. Some of the features are not very ergonomic in the new Blender UI. Documentation is not very great. So anybody who starts out with this plugin had also issues not knowing what to do. So the initial goal for me was to modernize this project. Basically, the idea was to create a fork of this repository and then submit pull requests to fix the broken features and possibly introduce new tools into the plugin. But as the time progressed, this improvement project turned into a full rewrite. At the end of the day, it turned out that the changes necessary to fix everything and bring in line with the new Blender was so huge that no longer was it warranted to try to merge it back to the original plugin. And I also made a few design decisions on purpose differently than the Arma Toolbox to improve workflow points that I always wanted to change. So with that being said, the Arma 3 Object Builder project started out. Since it is heavily based on the Arma Toolbox, the workflow it implements is very similar to the Arma Toolbox. Long-time users of that plugin, if they want to transition, will find the transition rather simple. Most concepts stay the same. The main difference between the two plugins is that the Arma 3 Object Builder plugin is a lot more in line with the graphical user interface design of Blender. We will find the tools and properties where one would expect based on Blender practices. The other is that the functionalities of the plugin were heavily extended and improved upon. In particular, the P3D import-export, which is the flagship feature of both plugins, was greatly improved from the Arma Toolbox. So how do we get this plugin? Now, depending on what Blender versions you use, there are two main routes to install plugins. If you use a Blender version that is before the 4.2 release, you will have to use the releases here on GitHub. So if you move to the GitHub page and go to releases, you will see the latest release at the time of making this video is 2.4.2. I also indicate that the tested compatibility of the plugin is from Blender 2.90 to 4.2. As noted on these release pages, release posts, All versions are backwards compatible to 2.90. The main reason for this is that I developed the plugin mainly on the 2.90 version, and nowadays more on the 3.6 version. But I always wanted to get as much backwards compatibility as possible, as many people use older versions of Blender for a multitude of reasons, like I do. So, to install the add-on, you'll have to download the release zip file, which in this case will be Arma 3 Object Builder 242 zip. If you downloaded this to a convenient location on the computer, so for example in a folder on my D drive, we can look into the zip, and this is just basically this is just basically the same file structure as you can see on GitHub. If you go to the files, this object builder folder is basically what the add-on is. So this is a pre-packaged release, which can be installed straight into Blender. So let's do that. We'll first have to open a Blender instance. For me, this is 3.6.1, I believe, yes, the long-time service version. And as you can see, I already have the add-on installed. This is because I'm developing it. But if I had not have it installed, all I would have to do is I would have to click on install, navigate to the file that I downloaded, select the zip, and then click on install. What that would do is that would extract the zip, place it in a necessary folder, and then an information prompt would appear at the bottom of the screen, for usually for people, telling that the add-on was successfully installed, but it is by default not activated. So the next thing you'll have to do is you'll have to search for Arma, and then on first installation this checkbox will not be checked. So you'll have to click it and wait for it to activate. Once it's activated, you will be able to see the add-on preferences. And also in this older version of Blender, you will have two links. The first one is the documentation, which I will show later, and then a link to the GitHub issue section to report bugs. But so if you look at the preferences, there are quite a few options. Mainly these are fine to leave as they are by default. The only thing really needed to enable the full set of capabilities of plugin is the Arma 3 tools path. Now, this will be only available on a Windows machine. If you're on Linux, the Arma 3 toolbox is not available the Arma 3 tools are not available on Linux. So this will be not applicable to Linux, but on Windows, you will have to set the path to the installation folder of the A3 tools from Steam. The two ways to do this is you either have to browse for the folder itself through a folder selector, or you can click on the magnifier icon, which will try to locate the tool installation based on the Windows registry keys. If it succeeds, it will show the found path. If it doesn't, it will throw a warning message, and you can still locate it by hand if you have it installed. If you don't have it installed, you obviously can't set this. So basically, this is all to get the plugin installed. You save your preferences, or Blender saves it for you. Secondly, second way to install it. If you are on a newer version of Blender, which is 4.2 and onwards, you will have a new method of installing plugins. You can still use the so-called legacy method, which is the one I showed so far, but newer releases such as this one, which is 4.4 alpha, will have a new feature called the extensions. Extensions are basically a unified way to manage themes and add-on type plugins for Blender. And any Blender plugins that are available or submitted and accepted at the official Blender extensions platform can be downloaded from an integrated view in Blender. So let's do that. You will notice that in the preferences there is a new tab. It says Get Extensions. As you can see, I already have the object builder installed, but so actually just to showcase how this actually works, let's uninstall this and restart Blender just to be sure. But basically what happens is actually click on the preferences, extensions. You can see that there is a prompt briefly that says checking manifest and updates. That means the Blender actually downloaded the available list of extensions from the official repository. So now all we have to do is type in Arma, and we can see that the Arma 3 Object Builder plugin is actually available on the extensions platform. So all we have to do is click install, which will download the plugin. The prompt also appears down below, and we can go to the add-ons, which already existed in all the versions, and we can set up the preferences as we did before. And this way the add-on is usable on 4.2 and onwards. If you can't do this, for some reason the integrated window doesn't work, then the alternative is to visit the Blender extensions platform by hand, well, manually. Wait for it to load in, hopefully. Yeah, and then search for Arma and open the Arma 3 Object Builder. Now this will present us with a very similar page to the GitHub repository. This is on purpose, basically the same README, or largely the same README can be found here. And this is where you can download all the versions released for this on this platform. The first one that I put up was 2.3.4. The latest one is obviously available as well. Now you can see that the compatibility says that Blender 4.2 and newer. This is because the platform itself doesn't allow to specify a Blender version before 4.2. But as I mentioned earlier, the add-on is actually compatible from 2.90. But obviously 2.90 versions will not have this extensions integration. So then the two options you have to download the plugin from here is you can click on this Get Add-on button, and you can either drag this piece and drop it inside Blender itself, which will open up the installation window, or you can click on download, and this will download a very similar zip as to the GitHub release, basically the same zip just with a different name. And then you can install this the same traditional way, which is called the legacy way, inside Blender. I believe an advantage of the integrated extensions UI in Blender is that you can actually directly update plugins that have newer versions on the extensions platform. I tried to make this as robust as possible with the plugin as well. Okay, so this is about the installation. Now, let's suppose we have the plugin already installed. What can we do with it? If you look at the Blender extensions platform, which I closed for some reason, and also GitHub, you will see that there is a link to a Gitbook page, which is the documentation for the plugin. One of the big plans, well, one of the big goals with this plugin was to create an actually usable and maintained documentation of the features in order to help people who seek help for some specific feature. So if you look at this link, it leads to a GitHub page, Gitbook page, the Arma 3 Object Builder. Again, a home page very similar to the GitHub page, but then there is a list of the main features. So what can the plugin do? The flagship feature of the plugin is the P3D import and export. which is the main goal, which is the main driving force for creating the plugin. This was heavily based on the work for the Arma Toolbox plugin by Oliver, but also the community wiki and the information located there about the model P3D format. And then other features include import-export for RTM animations, import for model CFG skeleton definitions, armature reconstruction, which is a fairly specific feature which will be later discussed perhaps in a video. There is then import for ASC files, which is a height map file format which can be used in the terrain builder application for Arma, and then also import-export for terrain objects list, again for the terrain builder application. Many thanks to Horrible Goat for help in the development of this feature. And then there are a bunch of little tool panels which will be all explained in separate videos, hopefully, to aid in mainly model authoring. These panels are mainly for P3D setups. All right. You can also find a quick start reference here, which more or less goes over the same things I have said so far: how to install it, how to download it, set up, maybe a few extra details which we'll mention right now. So if you go into Blender, there are three main areas, but actually four main areas for the tools of the plugin. The first one, which is one of the more important ones, is the file menu and then import and export. You can see that all the import-export options are located here, just as you would expect from any Blender file format. This is where you can choose the Arma 3 model, animation, skeleton, map object, and so on. Second one is there is a little menu in the 3D viewport mode at the top next to the object, which contains little utility functions for model creation, model setup. These are, if you look at the names, very closely resembling some of the more important features of the object builder application itself. This is mainly because one of the goals with this project was to create the plugin that as closely resembles the functions of Object Builder as possible to support everything. Third area of interest is the Object Builder tab in the 3D viewport sidebar. This is where we will find all the little tool panels. These are the panels listed here in the tools section on the documentation. All these tool panels perform their functions independently of each other, and they will be explained in separate videos. And then the final part is for objects that are set up for export import purposes. There will be extra panels here in mainly in the properties section, also the materials for RV mats, where we can set additional data for the objects themselves, mainly P3D, but there are also some properties for the height maps for ASC import export. Lastly, you will see that all these two panels and also the property panels will have these big question mark icons. These are all links to documentation, so let's say if we want to learn more about the lot properties, we can click on this icon and it will open up the lot properties page in your default browser from the documentation, which will give an overview of what each of the settings here does and what you can use them in the creation of P3Ds. Alright, so that's all I wanted to say about the plugin here. Hopefully I will succeed in creating more videos. and I will show examples of how to create models with the plugin, how to import them into the Arma format, and all the various tools available. Thank you very much.